one of the largest root causes for trouble is that people don't know that there's a difference between business OKRs and product OKRs. So business OKRs are about what we want. We want to increase revenue, or we want to decrease costs, or we want to streamline operations, things like that. And those results are usually money, or saved money, or decreased risk, or something like that.
Yeah.
Product OKRs are about our customers and our users. When it comes to things outside our four walls and we have to go find out, that requires product thinking and discovery and things like that are more difficult to implement. In larger organizations, people don't look at their software as software products, and they don't organize that way either. So it's harder to get a product OKR because you have to say basically as a hypothesis. Somebody said, how do you know those are even true or achievable? And the fact is, like, any of these things are hypotheses, but it's the idea that, we bet that if we do something, a customer will do something or a user will do something, and that will result in something good for us. But in terms of making the data available to decision make, it costs money to implement some of the metrics and dashboards you need as a product manager to make good decisions. So I think product operations is also very helpful. But, OKRs are supposed to align the organization around what they're delivering and help prioritize. But I've seen top-down OKRs. So Marty Kagan, who's a, big guy in the space, he's been out teaching OKRs, he and his organization. I've seen organizations go after OKRs so hard that 2 weeks later they end up with eval OKRs, individual eval OKRs. And when I said, no, that's not the thing, right? Mm-hmm. It's not a thing to do. But it was funny when I was doing research for my talk and I was reading the Wikipedia article on objectives and key results. That's one of the don'ts. That's a published don't on Wikipedia. Don't use OKRs in people's personal evaluations.
And when you say that, it means what leads to their promotions and compensations and those kind of stuff?
It's a real anti-pattern because, to get product right, it's so collaborative.
Yeah.
Right? It's so collaborative across the organization. And I have a slide about that in my deck where, promotion is usually vertical. And product thinking and good product practices collaborative across. So now, because of that, we're seeing the rise of chief product officer silos.
You mentioned something about product OKRs versus business OKRs.
Yeah.
What are some examples of customer or product OKRs that you've really liked in past companies or past examples?
Yeah, so there was one that was a customer an employee enabling product. It was a call center. So for a company that did trading, and the problem was that somebody would call with money and they would say, I have $60,000 and I want to deposit this and trade it. And the customer service representative would have to say, that's awesome, deposit your money, and when it clears in 3 days you can start trading. So the OKR hypothesis statement was, we bet that if we create a way for that customer service rep to see the risk level of the customer who's calling in, like in line during that call, that we can allow that person who's low risk to start trading immediately. And because at that time it was per trade, it was like $2.50 per trade, having somebody start trading immediately was real revenue for the company. So that was, you would say, we bet that if we do this, the customer service rep will be able to allow the customer, so they were the user, and it took a while for this product to get funded by the company because it was an architect who was talking about it as a data lake. So he was talking about it in these very technical, I want to create a data lake where, customer data comes in and then it goes out, and it wasn't clear what the value was. So by creating an OKR, by really creating an OKR and figuring out about how much revenue do we think, like how many people do we think are low risk, that you could calculate real business results from that. And it ended up being a multi-million-dollar idea. Yeah.
So what are some ways that folks can get started There's probably a lot of signal, a lot of noise, especially in the early days when you're saying I'm switching away from maybe a more traditional measurement system to OKRs for aligning folks.
So, I've always started this really simply. I've done, 2-day strategy sessions in person, where we get everyone together and talk about, what are we doing, why are we doing it, what does success look like? Because really the key results and being able to prioritize what you do is what does success look like, and what are the most important indicators of success for this thing before we start actually saying we're going to do it. But having and aligning on what does success really look like over a period of time, that's fundamental. Those are fundamental conversations to OKRs.
Yep.
And aligning on it is fundamental to creating some stability to go find out more information. But it is a challenge because of the hierarchy. I worked on one with a data product one time, and it ended up being more about customers couldn't search for the data they wanted to buy. So it was about metadata. We don't have the right metadata on the data to serve this up to customers. Well, there needed to be some research about, okay, what data really needs metadata and what are customers searching for? And I'll tell you, there was nobody to do that work. So we have a problem in that a lot of BAs that I have known and worked with who might do that research, UX folks, there aren't enough UX people, and there aren't enough people who are enabled to do real discovery, all up and down, up and down. It's just like when you're funding projects instead of results, you're not funding results. It's how soon can you complete this project?
Yeah.
And that's good project management, but it's not appropriate when we're talking about software products. You really want to be funding results and incentivizing results. The most important things prioritized first. That requires discovery, and there really isn't a lot of discovery going on in organizations right now of any size because they just didn't have their eye on that ball.
Yep.
And they're starting to now. So.
And what are some books or other resources online for folks to get started?
So I like Escaping the Bell Trap. So Melissa Perry might say that that's an elderly book, right? And she has a new one. But that book has been so helpful for leaders to understand that they're overbuilding and not set up to understand what they should be building and prioritizing. So I like that book. I think the new book, Product Operations, is a great reference book for all the pieces and parts and how to look at the reporting and what data you need. So I like that. So of course I'm partnered with Jeff Patton, and the user story mapping book, I'm not kidding you, but people still reference that book. I still have it dog-eared and highlighted, and it's still very helpful because story mapping is a bridging practice between business, product, and execution. And it's somewhere, Teresa Torres's book, Continuous Discovery Habits, also great. Also a great book. So those are really my top book. Marty Kagan's new book, Transformed. It's preachy, but it's also based on a lot of experience from product coaches. Yeah. So I appreciate a lot of what's in that. I also appreciate the writing that he's done.
Subscribe to the podcast to get future episodes as soon as they're published. If you find this helpful, give the podcast a 5-star rating on your podcast app or hit that like button on YouTube.